Have you ever wondered what it is like to live in a country that most people can't even find on a map, while everyone's fighting over overpriced apartments in Berlin or scraping together rent money in London? There is a hidden corner of Europe where your $500 monthly budget makes you feel like absolute royalty. Welcome to Belarus, the country your geography teacher probably skipped, but your wallet will absolutely love. Now, before you start typing angry comments about politics, let me stop you right there. We're not here to talk about headlines or governments. We're here to talk about real life. The life where a hearty meal costs less than your morning coffee back home, where rent is so cheap you'll check your bank balance twice, and where the women are so elegant they make Paris Fashion Week look like a garage sale. This is Belarus, and it's about to blow your mind. Most people think Belarus is just cold, gray, and depressing. They think it's all Soviet apartment blocks and government surveillance. Well, they're about 30% right on the apartment blocks, completely wrong on everything else, and missing out on what might be Europe's most underrated lifestyle destination. By the end of this story, you'll be Googling flights to Minsk faster than you can say Draniki, which, by the way, are potato pancakes that will ruin every other potato dish for you forever. So buckle up, because we're about to take you on a ride through a country where your money stretches further than a yoga instructor, where tradition meets modernity in the most unexpected ways, and where you might just find the life you never knew you wanted. Belarus sits right in the heart of Europe, like that friend who somehow knows everyone at the party, but never gets the attention they deserve. Sandwiched between Poland, Russia, Lithuania, Latvia, and Ukraine, it's perfectly positioned to be Europe's crossroads. Yet somehow most travelers zoom right past it on their way to more Instagram-worthy destinations. Their loss, your gain. The moment you step off the plane in Minsk, you're hit with something unexpected. This isn't the gray, depressing wasteland you've been told about. Sure, there are Soviet-era buildings everywhere, but here's the thing nobody tells you. They're actually pretty magnificent. These aren't crumbling concrete monstrosities. These are grand, imposing structures that make you feel like you're walking through the set of a spy thriller. The wide boulevards, the massive public squares, the perfectly maintained green spaces. It's like someone took the best parts of Moscow and Berlin, mixed them together, and then made everything affordable. Minsk itself is a city of contrast that somehow makes perfect sense. You'll see babushkas selling homegrown vegetables next to hipster coffee shops that wouldn't look out of place in Brooklyn. Soviet-era metro stations that are works of art in themselves sit beneath streets lined with trendy restaurants and modern shopping centers. It's like the past and present decided to shake hands instead of fight. But here's what really gets you: the cleanliness. Minsk is absurdly, almost suspiciously clean. You could eat off the sidewalks, though I don't recommend it because the restaurants are too good to waste the opportunity. The public transportation runs on time, the parks are immaculate, and graffiti is practically non-existent. Coming from cities where dodging potholes is an Olympic sport, it's refreshing to walk down streets that actually make you want to take a stroll. The first thing that hits most visitors is how European everything feels. Despite what you might have heard, yes, Russian is widely spoken, but you'll also hear Belarusian, Polish, and increasingly English among the younger crowd. The architecture tells the story of a nation that has been influenced by everyone, but managed to keep its own identity. Gothic churches stand next to Stalinist buildings, which neighbor modern glass towers, creating a cityscape that's uniquely Belarusian. Now let's talk about what really matters: the people. Belarusians have mastered something that seems to have been lost elsewhere in Europe. They know how to live without being constantly stressed about money. There is a calmness here that you won't find in London's tube stations or Paris's traffic jams. People actually have time for conversations. They don't walk around glued to their phones like zombies. And they seem genuinely surprised when foreigners are amazed by how affordable everything is. The daily rhythm here follows a different beat than the frantic pace of Western cities. People work hard, but they also know when to stop working. Lunch breaks are actual breaks, not something you wolf down while answering emails. Evenings are for family, friends, and those long conversations that somehow always end up being more interesting than whatever is trending on social media. It is like someone took European sophistication and mixed it with a healthy dose of What's the rush? What's fascinating is how Belarusians have managed to preserve their culture while embracing modernity. You'll see young professionals in designer clothes chatting with elderly neighbors who remember Soviet times, and somehow they're all getting along just fine. There is a respect for tradition here that doesn't feel forced or fake. It is just part of who they are. The work culture is refreshingly sane. Yes, people take their jobs seriously, but nobody's trying to win awards for working the most overtime. The concept of work-life balance isn't just a buzzword here. It's actually practiced. Most offices empty out at reasonable hours, and weekends are sacred. Try calling someone for work on a Saturday, and you'll get the kind of look usually reserved for people who put pineapple on pizza. Family is everything in Belarus. Multi-generational households aren't a sign of economic hardship. They're a lifestyle choice. Grandparents aren't shipped off to retirement homes. They're integral parts of daily life, sharing wisdom, stories, and helping with everything from childcare to cooking. It creates a social support system that makes the expensive therapy sessions popular in other countries seem unnecessary. The language situation is beautifully complex. While Russian dominates in cities, Belarusian is having a cultural renaissance, especially among younger people. It's not uncommon to hear families switching between both languages mid-conversation, creating a linguistic dance that somehow works perfectly. English is increasingly popular, especially in Minsk, making it easier for foreigners to navigate daily life than you might expect. But here's something that might surprise you: the internet culture. Despite what you might have heard about restrictions, Belarusians are incredibly connected and tech-savvy. The country has produced some serious tech talent, and the startup scene in Minsk is quietly thriving. Young Belarusians are just as likely to be discussing the latest app development as they are traditional folk dancing, and somehow both conversations feel equally important. The social fabric here is built on genuine community. Neighborhoods aren't just places where people sleep between work shifts. They're actual communities where people know each other's names, share resources, and look out for one another. It's the kind of social cohesion that urban planners in other countries spend millions trying to recreate, but here it just happens naturally. Now let us talk about something that will make your mouth water and your budget smile: the food. If you think Belarusian cuisine is just potatoes and sadness, you're in for the shock of your life. Yes, potatoes are everywhere, but they're elevated to an art form that would make French chefs weep with envy. Draniki aren't just potato pancakes. They're crispy, golden circles of pure comfort that somehow taste different every time you have them, depending on whose grandmother is making them. The beauty of Belarusian food lies in its honesty. This isn't cuisine trying to impress food critics or win Instagram likes. This is food designed to fill your belly, warm your soul, and make you understand why comfort food exists. Machanka is a pork stew so rich and satisfying that you'll question every overpriced restaurant meal you've ever had. It is served with thick slices of dark bread that is baked to perfection, and we rate talking about bread so good it could be a meal by itself. Speaking of bread, Belarusians treat it with the kind of respect usually reserved for religious artifacts. Dark rye bread is a staple that appears at every meal, and wasting it is practically a sin. The texture, the flavor, the way it perfectly complements every dish. It's bread the way it was meant to be, before mass production ruined everything. But here's where it gets interesting. The Soviet canteen culture never really died, and thank goodness for that. These aren't the grim, institutional cafeterias you might imagine. Modern canteens in Minsk serve fresh, homemade food at prices that will make you question the markup on restaurant food everywhere else. A full meal, soup, main course, side, and drink cost about the same as a single coffee in London. The food is prepared fresh daily, portions are generous, and the babushkas running these places take personal offense if you don't clean your plate. The restaurant scene has evolved beautifully. Traditional Belarusian restaurants preserve authentic recipes, while modern establishments experiment with fusion cuisine that somehow works. You can get perfectly prepared draniki with sour cream that is so fresh it was probably made that morning, or you can try modern interpretations that blend Belarusian ingredients with international techniques. Both experiences will cost you less than a mediocre lunch in most Western capitals. Coffee culture has exploded among young Belarusians, creating a cafe scene that rivals anything in Prague or Vienna, but at a fraction of the cost. These aren't just places to grab caffeine. They're social hubs where people actually talk to each other instead of staring at screens. The coffee is excellent, the atmosphere is relaxed, and you can spend hours nursing a single cup without dirty looks from staff trying to turn tables. The beverage situation extends far beyond coffee. Traditional drinks like kvis, a fermented bread drink that tastes much better than it sounds, are experiencing a renaissance. Modern versions come in flavors that range from classic to adventurous, and they're naturally refreshing in a way that puts artificial soft drinks to shame. And yes, vodka is still a thing, but it is treated with the respect of a craft spirit rather than a cheap way to get drunk. Market culture is alive and thriving. Local markets aren't tourist attractions. They're where regular people shop for ingredients so fresh they were probably growing in the ground that morning. Vendors take pride in their products, and shopping becomes a social experience where you learn about seasonal ingredients, family recipes, and local gossip, all while filling your basket with produce that costs pennies compared to imported supermarket vegetables. The seasonal approach to eating makes perfect sense here. Summer brings an abundance of fresh berries, vegetables, and herbs that get preserved, pickled, and prepared for winter in ways that have been perfected over generations. It's sustainable eating that happened naturally, long before it became a trendy movement in other countries. Now let's address the elephant in the room, or should I say, the beautiful women walking elegantly down the street. Belarus has gained quite a reputation for having some of the most stunning women in the world. And honestly, the reputation is well deserved. But here's what's more impressive than their looks. It's how they carry themselves. Belarusian women have mastered something that seems to have been lost elsewhere: effortless elegance. They dress well without looking like they're trying too hard, maintain themselves without becoming obsessed with appearance, and carry themselves with a confidence that comes from genuine self-respect rather than external validation. It's not about following fashion trends. It's about understanding what works and sticking with it. The dating culture here operates on refreshingly traditional principles, but not in a backwards way. Men are expected to be gentlemen, opening doors, paying for dates, making plans, while women appreciate these gestures without becoming dependent on them. It's chivalry without the patronizing attitude, traditional values without the sexist baggage. Confidence matters more than flashy displays of wealth, and genuine interest in someone as a person trumps pickup lines every time. What's fascinating is how relationships develop here. There's no hookup culture dominating the scene like in many Western cities. People date with intention, take time to get to know each other, and treat relationships as something worth investing in rather than disposable entertainment. This creates a social dynamic where people are actually looking for meaningful connections, instead of just passing time between other activities. Beauty standards exist, but they're more about health and taking care of yourself than achieving impossible ideals. Belarusian women work out, eat well, and dress nicely because they want to, not because they're competing with Instagram influencers. It creates an atmosphere where natural beauty is valued over artificial enhancement, though plenty of modern beauty services are available for those who want them. The social scene reflects these values. Nightlife exists and can be quite sophisticated, but it's not the desperate meat market you'll find in many European capitals. People go out to have fun, socialize, and enjoy themselves rather than hunting for one-night stands or validation from strangers. Clubs and bars are places for dancing, conversation, and genuine enjoyment rather than performing for social media. Family values run deep, and this influences how people approach relationships. Most Belarusian women are thinking long-term when they date someone. This isn't about playing games or collecting experiences. It is about finding someone worth building a life with. This can be refreshing for men tired of dating scenes where nobody wants to commit to anything more serious than next weekend's plans. What might surprise foreign visitors is how independent Belarusian women are despite their traditional values. They pursue careers, travel, start businesses, and make their own decisions while still appreciating when men treat them well. It is not about choosing between independence and femininity. It is about combining both in a way that feels natural rather than forced. The cultural expectations around relationships create interesting dynamics. Public displays of affection are common and accepted, but they're genuine rather than performative. Couples actually seem to enjoy each other's company instead of just documenting their relationship. For social media, hand-holding, flowers on random days, and treating your partner well are normal behaviors rather than special occasions. Worthy of celebration? Now let us talk about traditions that will make you question why other countries abandon all the fun stuff. Belarus has managed to keep folk traditions alive without turning them into tourist attractions. Or museum pieces? These are living, breathing cultural practices that people actually participate in because they enjoy them, not because they feel obligated to preserve heritage. Kapala Night is the perfect example. This midsummer festival combines ancient pagan traditions with Orthodox Christian elements, creating a celebration that's both mystical and genuinely fun. People gather to jump over bonfires, yes, actual jumping over actual fire, make flower wreaths, and search for the legendary fern flower that supposedly blooms only on this magical night. It sounds like something from a fairy tale, but it happens every year, and people take it seriously while having an absolute blast. The wreath-making tradition during Kapala Night isn't just craft time. It is a social ritual where young women create elaborate floral crowns that they eventually float down rivers while making wishes. The guys try to catch these wreaths, and according to tradition, catching one means you've found your future partner. It's like ancient Tinder, but with better success rates and significantly more romance. Orthodox holidays blend seamlessly with folk traditions in ways that would confuse religious scholars but make perfect sense to locals. Easter isn't just about church services, it's about elaborate egg decorating, massive family feasts, and traditions that have been passed down through generations. Christmas celebrations stretch from Catholic dates through Orthodox dates, basically giving everyone an excuse to celebrate twice. The seasonal festivals reflect a deep connection to natural cycles that urban life usually disconnects us from. Harvest festivals, spring celebrations, and winter traditions mark the passage of time in meaningful ways, rather than just changing calendar pages. These aren't forced cultural events. They are organic celebrations that happen because people genuinely want to participate. Folk music and dance remain incredibly popular, especially among young people who might surprise you by knowing traditional songs and dances alongside the latest pop hits. It is not unusual to see teenagers who can perform ancient folk dances with the same enthusiasm they bring to modern club dancing. The cultural knowledge gets passed down naturally through families and community events, rather than formal education. Superstitions and folk beliefs persist in charming ways. People still follow certain traditions around housekeeping, cooking, and daily life that might seem quaint to outsiders, but make perfect sense to locals. These aren't primitive beliefs, they're cultural practices that have practical roots and create social bonds between generations. The craft traditions continue strong, with skills like weaving, woodworking, and food preservation being passed down through families. These aren't just hobbies, they're practical skills that many people still use regularly. There is something deeply satisfying about knowing how to make things with your own hands. In an age of mass production and instant delivery, religious traditions coexist peacefully with secular life in ways that avoid the culture wars plaguing other countries. Orthodox Christianity provides cultural framework and community structure. Without becoming oppressive or judgmental, people participate in religious observances as much or as little as they choose, creating a spiritual landscape that's inclusive rather than divisive. Here's where things get really interesting for your wallet. That $500 monthly budget we mentioned at the beginning, it's not just survival money, it's actually comfortable living money. While people in London are sharing studio apartments with 3 roommates, your $500 in Belarus gets you a decent one-bedroom apartment in a nice neighborhood, with money left over for everything else. Let's break this down with real numbers that will make you want to book flights immediately. Rent for a one-bedroom apartment in a decent area of Minsk runs about $200 to $250 per month. We're talking about actual apartments with proper kitchens, separate bedrooms, and sometimes even balconies, not the shoe boxes passed off as studios in other European cities. For the same amount you'd spend on a parking spot in London, you get an entire place to live. Utilities are almost laughably cheap. Electricity, heating, water, and internet combined will run you maybe $30 to $40 per month. Internet speeds are excellent. Belarus has invested heavily in digital infrastructure, so you're getting better connectivity than many supposedly more developed countries. Heating works efficiently even in harsh winters, and you're not constantly worried about energy bills bankrupting you. Food costs will spoil you for everywhere else. A weekly grocery shop for a single person might cost $20 to $30 if you're eating well, and $1.15 if you rate being economical. We're talking fresh vegetables, quality meat, dairy products, and all the bread you can eat. Compare that to cities where a single meal costs what you'd spend on food for an entire week in Belarus. The metro itself is a marvel, clean, efficient, and decorated like an art gallery. Individual rides cost around 30 cents, making it cheaper than most parking meters elsewhere. Entertainment and leisure activities remain affordable luxuries rather than major budget items. Movie tickets cost $3 to $4, gym memberships run $15 to $20 per month, and even cultural events like theater or concerts are priced for regular people rather than wealthy tourists. You can maintain an active social and cultural life without choosing between entertainment and eating. Healthcare operates on a system that would make Americans weep with envy. Basic healthcare is essentially free for residents, while private healthcare options remain affordable for those who want premium services. Dental work, exams, and routine medical care cost fractions of what you'd pay elsewhere, and the quality is surprisingly good. Shopping for clothing and household items reveals the real purchasing power of your money. Local markets offer everything from fresh produce to handmade crafts at prices that make you question the markup on imported goods everywhere else. Even branded items cost significantly less than in Western Europe, making it possible to live comfortably without constantly calculating every purchase. The savings potential is remarkable. If you're earning Western wages while living on Belarusian costs, you can save serious money while living better than you would in most European capitals. Digital nomads and remote workers have figured this out, creating a small but growing community of foreigners who discovered this lifestyle arbitrage. Service costs for things like haircuts, repairs, and professional services remain reasonable rather than luxury expenses. A quality haircut costs $5 to $10. Appliance repairs won't require taking out loans. And professional services like accounting or legal help are priced for actual humans, rather than corporations with unlimited budgets. The quality of life your $500 buys extends beyond just covering expenses. It includes time and stress reduction that money can't buy elsewhere. When you're not constantly worried about rent, food costs, or transportation expenses, you can focus on enjoying life rather than just surviving it. Getting around Belarus reveals a transportation system that actually works for regular people. The public transportation in Minsk puts many supposedly more advanced cities to shame. Buses, trams, and trolleys run frequently and on time, while the metro system operates with Swiss precision but Soviet grandeur. The Minsk Metro deserves special mention because it's simultaneously a transportation system and an art installation. Each station is uniquely designed with mosaics, sculptures, and architectural details that turn your commute into a cultural experience. The trains run every few minutes during peak hours, stations are immaculately clean, and the whole system costs less per month than most people spend on coffee. But here is what really sets the transportation apart. It is designed for actual use rather than profit extraction. Routes connect residential areas to business districts, shopping areas, and entertainment zones in logical ways. You're not trapped in transportation deserts or forced to own a car just to function in society. The integration between different transportation modes means you can easily combine walking, buses, and metro to get anywhere efficiently. Intercity travel opens up the rest of the country at prices that encourage exploration, rather than discouraging it. Train travel is comfortable, affordable, and scenic, connecting major cities and smaller towns throughout the country. A train ticket to another city costs less than a taxi ride across town in most Western capitals, making weekend trips and day excursions financially feasible. Car ownership remains optional rather than mandatory, which is liberating for both your budget and stress levels. If you do want a car, fuel costs are reasonable, parking isn't a nightmare, and traffic flows better than the gridlock plaguing other European cities. But many residents happily live car-free, using the excellent public transportation supplemented by occasional taxis or car sharing. The cycling infrastructure is developing rapidly, especially in Minsk. Bike paths, rental systems, and cycling-friendly policies make two-wheeled transportation increasingly practical. It's not quite Amsterdam yet, but the trajectory is promising, and the flat terrain makes cycling more pleasant than in hillier cities. Walking remains a genuine option for daily transportation rather than just exercise. Sidewalks are well maintained, distances between amenities are reasonable, and the city planning creates pedestrian-friendly neighborhoods rather than car-dominated wastelands. You can actually walk to shops, restaurants, parks, and cultural attractions without requiring expedition-level planning. Taxi services, including modern app-based options, provide affordable alternatives when public transportation isn't convenient. Ride costs remain reasonable, rather than surge pricing you into bankruptcy, making taxis a practical option for late nights, bad weather, or carrying heavy items rather than luxury transportation reserved for special occasions. The transportation system reflects broader social priorities that value accessibility over profit. Maximization. It's designed to serve residents rather than extract maximum revenue, creating mobility options that enhance quality of life, rather than diminishing it through excessive costs. Belarus offers natural attractions that will make you question why everyone flocks to overcrowded national parks elsewhere. Belovetskaya Pusha isn't just a forest, it's one of Europe's last primeval forests, home to European bison that were literally brought back from extinction. Walking through these ancient woods feels like stepping into a fairy tale, complete with massive trees that have been growing since before your country probably existed. The bison themselves are magnificent creatures that embody Belarus's conservation success story. These aren't zoo animals or tourist attractions. They are wild European bison living in their natural habitat, representing one of conservation's greatest victories. Seeing them in their ancient forest home creates a connection to prehistoric Europe that no museum exhibit can match. Brest Fortress represents a different kind of attraction, a monument to human resilience that tells stories of courage under impossible circumstances. The fortress complex combines historical significance with impressive architecture, creating a destination that educates while it inspires. The scale and preservation quality make it a world-class historical site that happens to be affordable and accessible rather than overpriced and overcrowded. The Fortress Museum and Memorial Complex provide context for understanding not just Belarusian history, but European history more broadly. The exhibits, monuments, and preserved structures create an immersive experience that brings historical events to life in ways that textbooks never could. It's history you can walk through and touch rather than just read about. Mir Castle offers fairy tale architecture in a setting that's both historically significant and genuinely beautiful. This UNESCO World Heritage Site combines Gothic, Renaissance, and Baroque elements in ways that create visual poetry. Unlike many European castles that have become tourist factories, Mir retains an authentic atmosphere where you can actually appreciate the architecture and history without fighting crowds. The castle's surroundings enhance the experience with manicured grounds, peaceful lakes, and walking paths that encourage exploration rather than rushed photo sessions. The restoration work has been done with respect for historical accuracy, while making the site accessible and enjoyable for modern visitors. Natural reserves throughout the country offer outdoor recreation opportunities that remain affordable and uncrowded. Hiking trails, camping areas, fishing spots, and wildlife viewing areas provide escape from urban life without requiring expensive permits, reservations, or specialized equipment. These are places where you can reconnect with nature, without competing with thousands of other people trying to do the same thing. The lake districts provide swimming, boating, and fishing opportunities in settings that feel pristine rather than commercialized. Crystal clear waters, forested shores, and abundant wildlife create recreational experiences that cost practically nothing, but provide memories worth everything. Village tourism offers authentic cultural experiences in rural settings, where traditional lifestyles continue. These aren't theme parks or artificial recreations. They're real communities where people still live according to seasonal rhythms, practice traditional crafts, and maintain cultural practices that have disappeared elsewhere. The seasonal variations in attractions mean there's always something different to experience. Summer brings outdoor festivals, swimming opportunities, and hiking weather. Autumn provides spectacular foliage and harvest celebrations. Winter creates opportunities for skiing, ice fishing, and cozy indoor cultural activities. Spring brings renewal festivals and the awakening of nature after winter's rest. Safety in Belarus operates at levels that will spoil you for everywhere else. Walking alone at night isn't an exercise in risk management. It's just something you do without thinking about it. Street crime exists, but remains rare enough that locals are genuinely surprised when foreigners ask about safety precautions. The combination of social cohesion, economic stability, and effective policing creates an environment where personal security isn't a constant concern. The healthcare system deserves serious credit for providing quality medical care without bankrupting patients. While it's built on the Soviet model, it's been modernized and improved to provide comprehensive coverage that actually works. Emergency care is immediate and effective, routine care is accessible and affordable, and preventive care is emphasized rather than ignored until problems become serious. Medical education in Belarus attracts international students partly because of the quality training available at affordable costs. Belarusian medical schools produce competent doctors who work throughout Europe and beyond, indicating that the education standards meet international requirements. The combination of theoretical knowledge and practical training creates medical professionals who are well prepared for modern healthcare challenges. Dental care exemplifies the healthcare approach. Quality treatment at reasonable costs without the pricing games common elsewhere. Routine cleanings, fillings, and even major procedures cost fractions of what you'd pay in Western countries, while maintaining standards that keep locals and expats satisfied with their dental health. Prescription medications remain affordable rather than becoming major budget items. The pharmaceutical system emphasizes generic alternatives and reasonable pricing rather than maximizing profits, making necessary medications accessible to regular people rather than luxury items for the wealthy. The education system produces remarkably well-educated citizens who can discuss literature, history, science, and current events with knowledge and insight. Adult literacy rates approach 100%, and the population's general education level exceeds many supposedly more developed countries. This creates a social environment where intellectual curiosity is normal rather than unusual. Universities maintain high academic standards while keeping education accessible, rather than exclusive. The emphasis on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics has produced a highly skilled workforce that attracts international businesses and creates opportunities for local innovation. Students graduate with practical skills and theoretical knowledge rather than just expensive degrees. The engineering and technical education traditions continue strong, producing professionals who design and build everything from software to infrastructure. This technical competency shows in the quality of public services, digital infrastructure, and industrial capabilities that surprise visitors expecting Soviet-era inefficiency. Language education emphasizes practical communication rather than just academic exercises. Young Belarusians increasingly speak multiple languages, creating a cosmopolitan atmosphere that makes international visitors feel welcome, rather than linguistically isolated. Now let's tackle the practical stuff that determines whether Belarus remains a fantasy or becomes your reality. The visa situation has actually become more favorable recently, with expanded visa-free entry options for many nationalities. EU citizens can enter visa-free for up to 30 days through Minsk airport. making short visits and exploratory trips easier than ever. For longer stays, the e-visa system has simplified the application process significantly. Instead of embassy visits and complicated paperwork, you can apply online and receive approval relatively quickly. The requirements remain reasonable rather than bureaucratic obstacles. Designed to discourage applications, work permits and residency permits follow logical processes, rather than Kafkaesque bureaucratic mazes. If you have skills that Belarus needs, or if you're starting a business that provides local employment, the authorities are generally cooperative rather than obstructionist. The country wants to attract talent and investment, not drive it away with impossible regulations. The banking system has modernized considerably, with international transfers and currency exchanges working smoothly, rather than creating endless complications. ATMs are widely available, card payments are accepted most places, and the financial infrastructure supports modern digital life, rather than requiring cash-only transactions. Internet freedom and digital privacy operate under standards that are better than many supposedly more liberal countries. VPN usage is common and unrestricted, social media platforms work normally, and digital entrepreneurs operate freely within reasonable legal boundaries. The tech sector thrives precisely because the digital infrastructure supports innovation, rather than restricting it. Currency regulations have simplified to the point where money management becomes straightforward, rather than complicated. The Belarusian ruble operates normally. Exchange rates are market-determined, rather than artificially controlled, and currency conversions happen at fair rates rather than punitive government rates. Legal residency opens doors to healthcare, education, and social services that make long-term living practical rather than just possible. The integration process emphasizes learning local customs and languages, rather than jumping through arbitrary bureaucratic hoops designed to discourage settlement. Business registration and entrepreneurship operate under frameworks that encourage startups and small businesses rather than protecting established interests from competition. The regulatory environment supports innovation and job creation rather than strangling it. With excessive bureaucracy, tax obligations remain reasonable rather than confiscatory, especially for small businesses and individual entrepreneurs. The system is designed to fund necessary government services rather than maximize revenue extraction, creating space for economic growth rather than crushing it under fiscal burden. So here we are at the end of our journey through Belarus. And if you're anything like most people who learn about this place, your mind is probably spinning with possibilities. This isn't just another travel destination or lifestyle arbitrage opportunity. It is a complete reimagining of what European life can look like when priorities align correctly. Belarus represents something that is becoming increasingly rare in our modern world. A place where human-scale living is still possible, where your money retains actual purchasing power, where communities function as communities rather than collections of strangers, where traditions continue because people value them rather than because museums preserve them. It's a country that has somehow managed to modernize without losing its soul, to develop economically without sacrificing social cohesion. The $500 monthly budget we started with isn't just about financial arbitrage. It is about time arbitrage. When you're not spending 60% of your income on rent, 20% on food, and the rest on transportation and basic services, you suddenly have resources for things that actually matter. Time to learn new skills, energy to build relationships, money to travel and explore, space to think about what you actually want from life rather than just surviving until the next paycheck. But perhaps most importantly, Belarus offers something that money can't buy elsewhere: the possibility of a different kind of life, a life where elegance and simplicity coexist, where tradition and modernity enhance each other rather than compete, where quality of life comes from community and culture rather than consumption and competition. The women here understand that true beauty comes from confidence and self-respect, rather than expensive cosmetics and designer labels. The men understand that genuine strength comes from taking care of others, rather than dominating them. The culture values substance over style, character over charisma, and sustainability over short-term gratification. This isn't utopia. No place is perfect, and Belarus faces challenges like anywhere else. But it offers something increasingly rare: the possibility of living well without requiring wealth, of finding satisfaction through community rather than consumption, of building a life based on human values rather than market values. As global living costs spiral out of control and urban life becomes increasingly stressful and expensive, Belarus stands as proof that alternatives exist. You don't have to accept overpriced housing, mediocre food, stressful commutes, and social isolation as the inevitable cost of modern living. You don't have to spend your entire paycheck on rent and utilities. Eat fast food because real cooking is too expensive and time-consuming, or live surrounded by people you never talk to. The choice is yours. You can keep doing what you're doing, complaining about rising costs and declining quality of life while staying trapped in expensive cities that drain your bank account and energy. Or you can consider that maybe, just maybe, there's a better way to live that doesn't require sacrificing comfort, culture, or community. Belarus is waiting. It's been waiting patiently while everyone else discovered Prague, Budapest, and Lisbon. It's been quietly perfecting a lifestyle that balances affordability with quality, tradition with progress, individual freedom with social responsibility. It has been creating the kind of life that people in expensive cities dream about, but assume is impossible in the modern world. Comment below if you're ready to stop dreaming and start planning. Tell us what surprised you most about Belarus, what concerns you have about making such a move, or what questions we didn't answer. Share this with someone who's tired of paying Western prices for diminishing Western lifestyles. Because sometimes the best-kept secrets are the ones hiding in plain sight, waiting for people brave enough to look beyond the headlines and discover what's really there. Belarus might just be the answer to questions you didn't even know you were asking. The question is, are you ready to find out?